I have actually monitored this issue about cocoa farmers relative to COCOBOD position. I have listened to the minority speak in respect to this particular subject matter. And I've actually had the opportunity to watch excerpts of demonstration being staged by some cocoa farmers. I've listened to several accounts from some of the cocoa farmers as well.
Yeah.
Some have the view that they want to applaud the government with respect to the position the government have taken. Others have also of the view that they think the government is not doing enough. For me, one central point is simple. I have always believed in President John Dramani Mahama. Just like we witnessed with respect to the NDC situation when we assumed power, 7th January 2025. When President Mahama addressed the nation and make a categorical statement, typically of him, he doesn't intend to basically shift blames or apportion blames, or more or less look at it from a certain political angle or spectacle. As a president, one of the things that he told the good people of this country is to fix whatever challenges that he's being confronted with. So here we are with respect to the energy situation. Like he will always continue to talk about the fact that he doesn't intend to deal with the symptoms. He wants to deal with the root cause of it. Once again, this one too shall pass. I have the confidence and the belief in His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. That is one of the reasons why he quickly have a cabinet meeting, a crisis one for that matter, to address the challenges confronting the cocoa sector. I've listened to the CEO of COCOBOD, make a statement.
Dr. Adjei.
Dr. Adjei. For me, the first time I watched him on one of your sister TV stations, one of the things I said was the fact that he demonstrated a certain high level of humility to admit that indeed there are challenges confronting the sector, and for that matter, he intends to fix it. So I've listened to the minority side. You have to give it to them, because basically, for almost about more than 1.5 years, 1 year with some few months, basically there's nothing that they can pinpoint to relative to some of the negativity associated with this particular regime led by President John Dramani Mahama. So once they get an opportunity like that, they want to milk it. So you have to give them that credit. But one thing that is very important is the fact that we need to appreciate the intelligence of Ghanaians and the intelligence of the cocoa farmers who are watching us this morning.
Right.
They appreciate where we are coming from and vis-a-vis where we have gotten to. They appreciate what the position of the NDC prior to the 2024 election was. What was the position of the NDC? We made a statement to the effect that the NPP at that time were paying cocoa farmers the FOB price that we think that they were so changing cocoa farmers relative to taking into consideration what was prevailing at the world market. Is that not it? I've seen a video on Abu Atsoforsen, granted an interview in one of your sister radio station. He made a statement to the effect that when NDC assumed power, what we are going to do is we're going to pay cocoa farmers 70% of the gross FOB price.
The free on board.
Free on board. That's what he said. Relative to what the world market was at that time, and what the world market will be when the NDC assumed power. Currently, as we speak, I want to pose this question. What the NDC, somewhere in August 2025, the price per ton was 51,000 Ghana cedis per ton. The NDC, consistent with our posture and the position of the party, then opposition, the government waiting, so we're going to pay farmers 70% of the free on board price. Did we deliver or we did not deliver?
You did.
We did.
However, on the promise of 6,000, you didn't.
No, so what I'm actually saying is this. The promise of the 6,000, at that time, what was the FOB, what was the world market price? Because whatever we were discussing at that time, back in the opposition, was consistent with what was prevailing.
But you were a government in waiting to come at a certain time.
I agree with you.
Did you anticipate the prices on the international market at the time you be in power?
Fine, the point is, you see, the central point here is this. Regardless of our position was this, we're going to pay cocoa farmers, right, an amount of money that is consistent, 70%, consistent of what the world market price is. Is that not it? And the NPP at that time were paying 51%. Is that not it? And the NPP tells us that, listen, what the NDC is saying is a lie. We cannot fulfill that promise. And as we speak, the NDC is currently, back in August, we're paying 70%, right, of the FOB price.
Yeah.
In October, when the cedi begin to depreciate, we still maintain that 70%. As we speak, per the current policy shift by the government, we are paying 90%. Is that not it? That fact must be established.
Right.
That notwithstanding the fact that we appreciate the fact that, in fact, the world market, there are challenges with respect to the world market. When you go to Cote d'Ivoire, in the past, as we speak, Ghanaians cocoa farmers would have smuggled their cocoa to Cote d'Ivoire. Is that not it?
Yeah.
As we speak, Cote d'Ivoire itself are saying that this has never happened before. 10 years unprecedented, 10-year period unprecedented, to the extent that the Cocoa and Coffee Council in Cote d'Ivoire are going through the same challenges.
Right.
But like I said, we are not here to shift blames. We are not here to make it look like they are not challenges. Because you see, once we adopt that particular posture, it contradicts the very position that we took when in opposition. That we are not going to be a government that engage in what we call lamentation. But you see, it's also prudent and it's very constructive and instructive for us to expose the duplicity of the NPP.
Right.
It's important for us to let Ghanaians know the people that are making a lot of noises relative to the cocoa sector have no moral right to make such claims. Because
they don't?
Absolutely. Because you see, this is a regime about 2 years ago. Look at the debts, right, that they bequeathed to COCOBOD.
Right.
Look at an instances where you have jute sacks that you have already procured almost by 150,000 jute sacks, which you have not even exhausted. But yet you decide to commit yourself into another contract, $48 million. For what reason? For what reason? Go to Cocoa Road and look at the amount of debt that is in the books of COCOBOD. Right. You also have an instances where an amount of $350 million contracted from the African Development Bank relative to dealing with diseased cocoa farms.
Sowing shoots.
156,000. How many have they dealt with? 40,000. So at the end of the day, the COCOBOD in its current state, right, is in a state of comatose bequeathed to us by the NPP administration. But we are not interested to focus on that. That is why I say in the opinions of other people who continue to talk about the fact that if we indeed feel that these individuals, right, has put COCOBOD in the mess that is currently finding itself, they must be dealt with according to the dictates of the law. Because at the end of the day, if you are dealing with a group of people who are culprits when it comes to the current position of COCOBOD, and yet they go around and create an impression that they did nothing untoward to bring COCOBOD to its current state, and yet nothing is being done about it. That is why people raise that concern. For me, I keep on saying one thing. I have listened to the CEO of COCOBOD. I've listened to Honorable Eric Opoko. I've listened to the finance minister. One important thing is the fact that we are not here to shift blames. We are here to find a lasting solution in dealing with the problem confronting COCOBOD. See, whatever that happens to cocoa, it affects the backbone of this country.
True.
Cocoa continues to hold this country together since time immemorial. The backbone of this country's economy solely rely on cocoa until they're coming into being of oil and what have you not. So it's quite instructive that we should deal with the cocoa issues.
There's the argument that you've relegated cocoa because now you're enjoying processed gold.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You see, if indeed the government has relegated cocoa to the background, we would have made a certain promise whilst in the position that we're going to pay the 70% of the FOB price as consistent with what is happening in the world market. That tells you the importance that we attach when it comes to cocoa farming.
Very well.
Do you understand? That tells you the importance. It's what, see, NDC. In the era of the NDC, we're giving cocoa farmers free for the fertilizer. It tells you the importance that we attach to cocoa farmers. He also talked to you about the fact that for the mere fact that the president summoned all his cabinet ministers in a meeting to discuss about this problem confronting what we call COCOBOD and cocoa farming. It tells you the seriousness that the president attached to cocoa farmers. And I will conclude with this. You see, the NPP, for me, they have not really changed when it comes to their strategy. The very strategy that handed over the heaviest defeat under the Fourth Republic, they've not learned from it. Because you see, I see a certain individual championing a certain cause. And I ask myself, these are individuals that have credibility deficits.
Really?
And you see, once you have individuals that have credibility deficits, they are not the one to champion the cause, to redeem the NPP of credibility deficits. Because you see, these are people, right? I mean, 2 years ago, or less than 1 year ago, it was obvious that these individuals have lost credibility when it comes to the right-thinking Ghanaians.
Really?
But there's absolutely nothing wrong, right, in professing a solution, in dealing with a particular problem. But all of a sudden, you are creating an impression that the NPP has been in opposition for 8 years. But you've been in opposition for less than 1 year, 3 months. And all of a sudden, you are coming out to create an impression that President John Dramani Mahama, the COCOBOD CEO, have done something, right, that has put COCOBOD in its current state. What I want to advise my colleagues from the NPP is this. You see, the NDC was in opposition. We saw a certain level of credibility, right? The NPP in power were basically dismissive. We have not been dismissive. Anytime somebody says something, they dismiss it.
Very well.
Right? But we have not been dismissive. We have accepted the fact that there are challenges. And how we deal with the challenges is the policy shift that has been announced by the finance minister. And as we speak, you've heard what the present position is, what the government position is, and about the fact that we intend to add value addition to our cocoa.
Right.
So that is how we intend to deal with the problem. As for the NPP, if they are hanging on to this cocoa saga, I believe it wouldn't be long. We'll be able to deal with this particular situation and deal with it heads on, so that at the end of the day, cocoa farmers will be satisfied with this particular region when it comes to the policy shift in dealing with this issue.